I am nearing the age of 40. That is a pretty scary phrase to say. Now, I have a couple years left until the big 40, and lately I've been reflecting on the money milestones that I personally want to accomplish before I hit that decade. Now, in the past, I've made videos here about different money milestones that you should hit in your 20s and 30s, but in this video, I want to share with you guys my personal goals when it comes to money. This is a little bit of a different type of video, as it's just going to be me talking to you without much of a script. I have some of the bullet points here on my computer, but for the most part, I just want to share with you guys what I'm personally working on, and hopefully this can inspire you, and maybe you can also learn something from it as well, because I will also be explaining how different financial concepts work. So let's get into the first money milestone I want to accomplish before I hit the age of 40, which is that I want to continue maxing out my Roth IRA. 5 years ago, my Roth IRA was worth about $29,800. I made a video on my channel, and in that video, I had 4 ETFs within the Roth IRA. Looking back, though, I realized that that might be too conservative for my age and risk tolerance, and I have since actually changed what I hold within my Roth IRA. I'm going to share with you guys that in a second, but let's actually look at what my Roth IRA used to look like in 2020 and 2021, and you can see that it just had 4 ETFs in it. I held BNDW, which was a Vanguard Total World Bond ETF. I held VEU, which is an international fund by Vanguard, and then I held 2 US stock ETFs, VO and VTI. If you guys know anything about ETFs, VO stands for the Vanguard S&P 500 ETF, and VTI is the total stock market ETF. So that actually includes all the same stocks that V does. Now back then, what I was trying to do was to replicate a 3-on portfolio. But funny enough, I had 4 funds in there. The idea of a 3D portfolio is that you have a US stock market fund, which was represented by my 2 VO and VTI. Then you have an international stock market fund, and then a little bit of bonds for diversification. Theoretically, I did replicate the 3-fund portfolio with my 2 US stock ETFs. However, the reason since I've switched away from ETFs and into more individual stocks, at least within the Roth IRA, is that I fully understand now the benefit of the Roth IRA is that all your gains are going to be tax-free. Since my holding period for the Roth IRA is going to be at least until I hit the age of 59 and a half, I wanted to buy some stocks that were going to be good long-term, but could also appreciate a little bit, maybe at a higher percentage than a lot of the ETFs that I was holding. In other words, I just really wanted to take on a little bit more risk in my Roth IRA, especially given the tax advantages that it had. These days, my Roth IRA, I have been maxing it out every single year since 2020 and is now worth just about $100,000. Currently, as I'm recording, it fluctuates a lot between 98K and 102K, and I only hold 5 individual stocks within it, which are Tesla, Microsoft, Robinhood, Nvidia, and Metastock. So my money milestone here is pretty simple and straightforward. It's just to continue maxing out the Roth IRA. Now, admittedly, the income I now make is over the Roth IRA income limit. So what I've been doing instead is the backdoor Roth IRA method. In 2026, if you're making over $168,000 as an individual in a single year, or if you're a couple making over $252,000, you are not eligible for the Roth IRA contribution. However, you can still contribute to a backdoor Roth IRA instead, and that's where you contribute to a traditional IRA, convert it to a Roth, and then you can do so that way. So I will leave an article down below which details how to do that in case you are in the same boat. The second money milestone I want to hit before I'm 40 is to continue to avoid lifestyle inflation. This is just one of those money milestones that I think applies to all points in your life, and for me, nothing has ever been more apparent. I personally am really proud of the fact that my lifestyle has been pretty much the same since I started making content online. So I've been keeping track of my expenses since 2014, and I can see it in my own data. I am spending a little bit more money here and there only because things are costing more compared to in 2014, but it's not like I'm going out and buying lavish clothing, designer goods, the brand newest watch, etc. One of the lessons of the book, The Millionaire Next Door, has stuck with me, which is that the best accumulators of wealth, they keep their lifestyles cheap and modest while their income increases. So for me personally, I've been just trying to increase the delta between how much I make and how much I spend. And that's what I've been focused on for the past 6 or 7 years while making content. Now, I have some friends, they make quite a lot of money. They make between $500K to $1 million per year, and they work in, let's say, commercial real estate, but they like to spend it all. I'm just trying to not be like them and spend all my money. But in some ways, I feel like by not spending that much money, that is a little bit kind of hurting my own life because maybe I'm not enjoying my life to the fullest. However, right now, I'm just really enjoying the fact that I'm investing into the S&P 500 and into the stock market, and I'm potentially thinking about buying a house. And I will probably talk a little bit about that later on in this video. Money milestone number 3 is getting my emergency fund up to 12 months of expenses saved up. I personally used to enjoy keeping around 6 months of expenses saved up in my emergency fund, but these days I want to increase it to 12. The point of having 12 months saved up for me is that it gives me way more mental freedom and flexibility. So I feel like with 12 months of expenses, I could go out of business tomorrow, and even then I would just have still at least a year of just focusing on something else to make some money. And personally, I know that life is just going to get more expensive, especially if I ever own a house or if I ever have a family one day or any other financial obligations. I just would like to have a little bit more cash on hand. I keep my emergency fund in a high yield savings account. And if you're looking for one, I will link to a tool down below that has accounts paying anywhere from 3 to 3.5% as of my recording this. I still think officially, though, it's fine to have a 3 to 6 month emergency fund. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, 3 to 6 months is already very safe. So just because I'm trying to get to 12 months doesn't mean that you have to as well. Now, if you don't have a solid emergency fund built out, I would try to set some smaller goals and then build towards those. Psychologically, it's really hard to save for an emergency fund, especially if your target is, say, $15,000 or $20,000. But setting smaller goals is easier. I would go first for your first $1,000, then $2,000, and then maybe $5,000 if that's more manageable to you. But as long as you are saving some money for your future and your emergencies, I think you're well on your way. The 4th money milestone I want to accomplish is simply having an estate plan. So I don't know if you guys knew this or not, but last year in the month of May, my father passed away. I did mention it briefly in a YouTube video, but mostly I kept it to myself. Now my father had somewhat of an estate plan. It wasn't perfect though, and when I was talking to the trust attorney about late last year and earlier this year, he said that his estate could have been done much better. There were just some things that my dad had not been specific about enough in his documentation. For example, which types of property would go to who. For example, there was a wooden trailer at my dad's house that I just kind of forgot about, but you would attach it to a truck to haul away debris and various items. And I didn't know this, but a trailer actually has a title attached to it. So when it came down to basically clearing the estate, I just didn't know what to do with that. That's kind of like a minor detail of an estate plan, but I'm just trying to illustrate the fact that I think if we had a fully buttoned up estate plan with full instructions on what the executive, aka me, was going to do, then my personal life would have been easier. So I know I'm pretty young to have, let's say, an estate plan, but if you have dependents that rely on you and you have assets that you want distributed, I think that you should probably at least have an estate plan, or at least start thinking about one, even if you are under the age of 40. The major components of an estate plan are documents like the living will and the healthcare power of attorney. These are the documents that just state what your preferences are in case something were to happen to you. Now, I would probably go to a trust attorney to set this up just because I went through this process and I want the estate plan to be fully buttoned up and bulletproof. That way, whoever is taking care of my future estate has an easier job to do it. The 5th money milestone I want to do before I'm 40 is to add at least one more income source. Currently, I have my YouTube, my creator business, as well as some dividends from my portfolio. But being in the financial space for a while, I know how important it is to have a diversified mix of income. Close to 95% of my income comes from my creator business. So that's on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and maybe a little bit of Substack. But the problem is that if any one of those platforms goes away, I don't really have a backup plan. The dividends I have in my portfolio, they are nice, but they can't sustain my life indefinitely. And so I'm not really at financial independence, retire early just yet with dividends. I don't sell any courses and I don't have any digital products, like big ones at least. I have like maybe one paid template that you can buy that's 15s, but that doesn't make up a lot of revenue. I was thinking I could either start investing in rental properties, perhaps buy a house and then have a tenant live in it, or perhaps start a side business. Either way, I'm trying to find an income source that works for me. Even if it's just an extra $500 or $1,000 per month, that could be money that could be invested or cover some expenses. The 6th money milestone I want to do in the next couple years is to take care of my family. This one's a little self-explanatory, especially if you come from an immigrant background, but being of Chinese descent in Chinese culture, I personally know that the kids are expected to take care of their parents as they get older. This is known as filial piety. I know that sounds like a weird word, but it's just a confusion value where the kid helps take care of their elders. So I actually had to look up on Google exactly what are some of the common examples of this practice. So here they are living with or near elderly parents to provide support, providing financial support to parents, honoring deceased parents through rituals, or choosing careers or locations based on proximity to family. Personally, I do think I do a lot of those things already. I have deliberately chosen to live in the Bay Area because it was close to my family. In the past, I had been drawn to places like Los Angeles, Austin, New York, but ultimately I stay here because my family is here. Also, my friends are also really great, and they're a big part of my life. And I went to high school around here, so a lot of my friends are still from high school. So as I inch closer to into my 40s, I'm also going to be making sure that I take care of my mom, who is now in her late 7s. That could mean perhaps I invest in a condo for her to live in, or perhaps I just give her some money on a monthly basis. You know, your parents take care of you for a really long time as you go from the ages of 0 to 18 or whatever age you stay at home for. So in my specific case, I lived at home with my parents for quite a long time before I moved out. So I do feel like I owe it to them to help them as much as I can. All right, let's get into my 7th money milestone today, and that is to perhaps buy a house. I say perhaps because I've been kind of going back and forth on whether or not I should buy a property, especially in the Bay Area where renting is so much cheaper than home ownership. But ultimately, I do think that I would like to own a house in the future. And the reason that I'd like to own some property is not financial related. If we were just speaking about financials only, the math actually works out to the point where you can make more money by renting and investing the difference of your down payment and the savings difference between your mortgage payments and your rent. This is, of course, assuming a 6.5% mortgage rate in America right now, which is what we have. But if mortgage rates were closer to 2.5 or 3%, then the financial trade-off would be a lot closer. In terms of reasons that I would want to own a house, it's mostly psychological. I think it would be nice to have a house to put my mom in while she's getting older, because this goes back to the filial piety thing, and also because she currently rents her own apartment right now. If you want the full backstory, basically my dad owned a house, but then my dad and my mom were divorced, so my dad kept the house and she ended up renting instead. The other thing that is nice about owning a house is that you can completely customize it the way you want it to be, and you can expect that your monthly payment stays fixed because it's probably on a mortgage payment. And then I do think it would be nice to get a lot of use out of the home, being that my mom would live there and then I would possibly move into it at some point when I have my own family. Still, though, I'm not like 100% sure I want to buy a house. I'm just saying that this is what I'm currently leaning towards. If you guys have any opinions, please let me know in the comments. I would love to hear from you. All right, the next money milestone that I'd like to accomplish before I am 40 is to continue to invest in my health. This is not directly a monetary milestone, but I think that having good health is going to let me live longer. It's going to mean I could probably make more money, which indirectly makes it a money milestone. I admittedly have not been the best about keeping tabs on my health. I haven't been to a doctor for my annual physical in a couple of years now, and I just think that as I'm getting older, I should at least do that step. I've also noticed that my metabolism is slowing down and my body just hurts way more in my mid to late 30s than it did before. Like sometimes I'll just wake up and my back hurts. So in the next 2 years, I'm really reinforcing the fact that I should have a balanced diet. I should be keeping up with regular exercise and make sure I also go to my doctor and dental appointments. I think that you might be pretty busy throughout your life too. So sometimes you just need to realize it's better to be proactive about your health than to be reactive. If you're watching this and you have been procrastinating on going to the doctor or going to the dentist or getting something checked out, maybe take this video as a sign that you should probably do that. And the last money milestone I want to hit before the age of 40 is to have a vision for what my 40s are going to look like. I don't really want to wake up at the age of 40 with a solid net worth, but then zero clarity on what to do with it. So I'm thinking that I should be able to answer some basic questions like, do I still want to live in the Bay Area? How do I want to spend my time? Do I like the stuff that I'm working on, etc.? Another thought I had was, today's Thursday, so does my current Thursday and 7 years from now still look really similar to today, or does it look completely different? My plan doesn't really have to be perfect, nor does it have to be this like grand vision that I have my heart set on. But I think having some sort of North Star for the next 10 to 15 years of my life could be really eye-opening, because it will guide me on how I use money towards that North Star, or how I continue to make money towards that North Star as well. Personally, I still really enjoy making these videos. I know it's been 6 or 7 years that I've been making videos here on YouTube, so if you've been watching that long, I really appreciate it. And if you're new to the channel, I appreciate it too. Let me know which one of my money milestones you resonated with in the comments. And also, I'll probably be making a more generalized version of this video for the masses so that you can have some financial milestones to work towards before the age of 40. Because I definitely recognize that some of these milestones I talked about in today's video only apply to me and not to everybody. All right, I will see you guys in a future video. Thank you again. Peace.